welcome to Honest Car Reviews. My name is Eric and this is the Xpeng G9. It's brand new, just coming to Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands and Germany. This is a pre-production, which means that not everything is 100%, especially infotainment and those technical stuff. But the car, the mechanical stuff, the suspension, the driveline, all of that is finished. So that's what we'll focus on this review. The rear wheel standard range, 699,990 Swedish kroner. In the long range, 749,900 kroner. And here in the all-wheel drive performance, it's 829,900 Swedish kroner. So this is the max spec'd out version. It also has the technology sound package, which means that this is about 850,000 Swedish kroner. And I'll of course put up a list on how that is in euro prices. The car weighs about 2.4 tons, and that's thanks to, in this spec, a 98 kilowatt-hour battery. In the standard range, it is 78.2 kilowatt-hour. So when you go from the standard range to long range, you go from 78.2 kilowatt-hour to 98 kilowatt-hour. So a big jump, and that means that the range in the different specs, in the standard range is 460 kilometer, in the long range 570 kilometer, and in the all-wheel drive long range 520 kilometer. It's based on 800 volt architecture, which means that you can charge this maximum 300 kilowatt. There's not a lot of cars that can do that. Unfortunately, it only has 11 kilowatt on-board charger compared to other competitors that had 22 kilowatts. The power in this spec, so I have a motor in the rear and a motor in the front. And combined, the output is about 550 horsepower and 717 Newton meters of torque. It does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.9 seconds. That is fairly rapid for a car of this size and weight of about 2.4 tons. And obviously this is a luxury car, SUV. And the question is if it will succeed in the very competitive European market. If we look into the rear luggage space, 660 liters. Hugely spacious. The wheelhouse doesn't intrude that much into the cabin. There is a bit of a lip here, but not too bad. And of course you can fold down the rear seats in the 60/40 configuration. One thing that I think is a bit annoying is that you can't open the charging port with the hand. You have to either do it from the driver's side or you can do it from your key. And what do you guys think of the design? Xpeng talks about this, the X being the key design point here. So this part goes up and here it goes down, which creates this X in the middle. What do you think? The car comes, these are summer tires, and these are bespoke for an electric vehicle, Michelin Pilot Sport EV. So no 4S or anything, these are bespoke for a heavy electric car. Let's go into the rear space. The rear seat is in a quite extreme position, but that is not a problem because you can control the front seat here on the side here. Very smart that they have dual controls. So if someone wants to just sit in the rear, they can control how much space they have. And obviously there's a lot of space here, a lot of knee space and a lot of foot space. You can angle the bench by pressing this button here. So you can change the angle of the bench by up to 10 degrees. And by pressing this button, the lower thigh support can go forward and backward. And by pressing this middle button, the massage seat starts, which are both in the rear and in the front. Panoramic sunroof comes as standard. Feels pretty well built, nothing that creaks. Nappa leather, the Dano, the sound system, the metal finishes, the two-tone. I mean, I think Xpeng has done a lot of things very right with the interior. It feels well built. There isn't that much to really complain about. Completely flat floor as well, so even though this is not the most comfortable seat, in terms of the foot space, I have more than decent. Incredible, really good rear seating position, really good rear seats. Size-wise, this competes with the BMW iX, the Mercedes EQE, and those types of cars. Right, in the driver's seat, wireless charger, very easily located. So I want to review the infotainment here because, as I said before, it is a pre-production, but some things work. There will be some beeps and sounds coming, and I'm sorry for that. That's something that you will have to endure. But in terms of the interior, you can change the light here, a lot of metal finishes. One thing that I think is a bit of an issue is, of course, if I buy this car, I will be the one driving this car. But if I, for some reason, need to change the position of the steering wheel, I have to go through the infotainment system, here, into gear.
Use the steering wheel control to adjust the angle and position.
So it goes in like this, goes out, up, down. Works very fast, but having to go all of these steps to just control the steering wheel, you don't do it when you're driving, that's for sure. Hey Xpeng.
Hey.
Open my window.
Opening the driver's side window.
And depending on where you're sitting, so if you're a passenger, it will say the same phrase, it will lower that window. Pretty cool feature. Right now it's only English. Depending on which country it will be sold, it will be adapted to that language. Infotainment is quite advanced. I would probably say that it's up there with anything else on the market. And that's a big statement, I think. The only problem I feel is it is a bit of a learning curve. The big problem with this car is it won't come with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Xpeng will do their own system for this. It has over-the-air updates, so depending on the feedback from the customers, or if Xpeng feels that it is necessary to do an update, they can do that. Driving the Xpeng G9, and well, let's activate the cruise control.
X-Pilot ACC activated. Please drive carefully.
One thing that I can already say is that there are a lot of warnings. Very sensitive lane assist, and I tried to cancel it. It is probably possible to do it, but there are a lot of warnings to deactivate. Right now I have the active cruise control, and one thing that I noticed pretty early is how similar the design of some features is to Tesla. The air suspension, the very, very light steering that you can basically use with only one finger, super, super quiet. The absolutely mental performance for a car of this type all boils down to a very comfortable driving experience. There's no other way to put it. Xpeng has done a lot of good here, a lot of good work. And let's go into standard. Let's see if the steering and the suspension loosens up a bit. Let's up the speed. Scroll to adjust speed. Alright, so it's the left side here. But there wasn't a clear indication of how I did that. So you have to figure out stuff by yourself a bit. Back to the suspension, and in standard it is softer, and that is one of the advantages of having air suspension. Depending on which driving mode, you can change the suspension quite heavily as well. So in standard it is softer, it moves about more, it's not as reactive as in sport. The steering is also not as precise, a bit more laid back, and that is also just positive when you're driving normally. I had driven this on some mixed roads, and you can see the average consumption right now, it's going down, but 26 kilowatt-hour per 100 kilometer. Xpeng claims about
Hello.
voice assistant.
You can give me more specific instruction, like, hey Xpeng, turn up the volume.
That is great to know. But you can see here that the average consumption is hovering around 26 kilowatt-hour per 100 kilometer. Xpeng claims around 19. And of course, depending on the temperature, but if it goes below 0, which it does in Sweden, I think we could see much higher than 30 kilowatt-hour per 100 kilometer. So keep that in mind. Now it's time to see how the Xpeng G9 handles on some twisty roads. Bit tight the corner here. Yeah, it's very soft. Not that communicative front end, but it doesn't feel that will beep quite a lot during this part of the test drive. Just look aside from that. It doesn't feel as stiff as ordinary electric cars. It's much softer. I'm super grateful for that. A big plus in my opinion. But in standard, I don't know if it is because it's a pre-production car, but I'm flooring it now. There's about a 1 second delay in the power response. One thing that I find quite annoying is that when you engage the indicator stock, it's sometimes very difficult to cancel it. You have to really get to know the indicator stock. You have to get intimate with it. And it sounds very weird, but that's how it is. There's no... It's here. There's so many beeps coming out. But yeah, you have to get to know that indicator stock. One final thing before I switch into sport is the steering. Yeah, it is standard, which means that it should be more relaxed. There's a distinct lack of communication. I think mainly due to the softness of the steering. Very vague. Let's hope that sport will change things. Immediately better throttle response. The steering is a bit sharper, not much. The response from the gas pedal is much more instant, not that much of a delay. Still a delay, mind you. And those 550 horsepower is working right now. You can feel the front pulling up even. The rear squats a bit, trying to put the power down. The car does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.9 seconds. So let's do the phone test. Let's put it on the seat and accelerate and see if it sticks.
Please pay attention to road conditions.
It does. Phone test complete. The brakes are from Brembo and it's a lot of weight. Oh, not that eager turning in. And I think the brakes are quite vague. I think the problem is the front is just not aggressive enough for this type of driving. The power tells me that it's trying to be more aggressive. The 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time is in sports car category, which means that it needs to have some sort of stability when you drive it more aggressively. And it has some stability, but it is not enough for this to contain this power and this weight. To finalize the Xpeng G9, a luxurious big-sized electric SUV with specs that are up there with basically anything else on the market. 10 to 80% in 20 minutes. How many cars can do that with the size of that battery? The design might not be to everyone's liking. It's a bit too simplistic, I think, and this horizontal light bar is not really my cup of tea. But everyone to their own. The price is very competitive, very well spec'd from the beginning. Good range, good charging speeds, feels well built, advanced infotainment with a lot of cool tech. What is there not to like? Well, I'm having a hard time finding anything that's hard to like. Which means that Xpeng has done a lot of things right. But is it enough to break into the very competitive European market? Well, only time will tell. But if you're considering a big size luxury SUV that is electric, I think that you should seriously consider the Xpeng G9. That's my final conclusion. See you next time.